Hello everyone, welcome back to Into Sports. I'm your host Evan, and today we're talking about the Chris Paul trade that occurred just recently going to the Phoenix Suns. But before we do, please click that subscribe button. It would help me out a lot. I'd really appreciate it. But the Phoenix Suns basically just traded Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, and a first-round pick to get Chris Paul. And those are the cliff notes of the deal because there were a few lesser players thrown in there as well. But today I'm going to answer two questions. Number one, does Chris Paul make the Suns championship contenders? And number two, which team got the better end of this trade? Now, Chris Paul is a guy that makes a bigger impact in the win column for his team than the stats would show. A year ago, the Thunder's win total in the offseason was 32.5. That was worse than the Timberwolves and the Kings. So Vegas, who's very smart, was saying that the Thunder were a bad team, not a playoff team. And Chris Paul didn't care. He led them to the 5 seed and took Houston with James Harden and Russell Westbrook all the way down to 7 games in the first round. But this Suns team is more talented than last year's Thunder. You have Devin Booker, a 27-point-a-game type star. And also, don't forget about former number 1 pick DeAndre Ayton, who averages a double-double. And yeah, you lose 2 starters in Rubio and Oubre, but you have some young players that can emerge. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, those are 2 3-and-D guys that were picked highly in the NBA draft in the last few years. And there's a reason this team went 8-0 in the bubble. And yeah, a few teams weren't at full effort. We know that. But there is talent on this team. But can they be title contenders? That's the question. Well, let's look at the West. I think undeniably in Tier 1, you have to put the Lakers, Clippers, and Warriors. The Warriors getting back Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And don't forget, they have the number 2 pick in this year's draft. Now, the Clippers are a little bit more of a question mark, but come on, Kawhi Leonard, you still have Paul George, we'll see what they do, but there's a nice nucleus around Leonard. If they do decide to trade George, I put them in Tier 1, as well as the Lakers. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, come on now, we all know that. But then Tier 2, I put the Nuggets with Jokic and Murray, who had a very impressive playoff run this last season, and then I put the Suns right here in Tier 2, with DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul. I also put the Dallas Mavericks with Doncic and Porzingis. We'll monitor the health of Porzingis, but if they can get any kind of defense going in Dallas, that's going to be a good team. As well as the Utah Jazz. A lot of veteran experience, but they don't really have a dominant athlete on the wing, but they're still a very good team. And I throw the Rockets in there as a wild card. We don't know what's going to happen with James Harden and Russell Westbrook, so wild card for now. But the Suns are a Tier 2 team to me. They're not a true top-line title contender, like the Warriors, Clippers, Lakers, but that's a team that can make noise and disrupt things in the Western Conference come playoff time. But if you aren't a top-tier title contender in the West, is it really worth it to pay a veteran point guard $85 million over the next 2 years? Well, actually, yeah. I like this trade for the Suns. You have your star Devin Booker, who's been vocal about his unhappiness for not making the playoffs. And without this trade, I don't know if the Suns are a playoff team. I would have my doubts. This year is the Suns' last chance to make Devin Booker happy in Phoenix, to create a winning environment. And I think they did just that. This move increases the odds Booker will be in Phoenix in a year or two by a significant amount. They needed to make a big move, and they did just that. Also, we look at the Suns with a very young roster. Chris Paul, just like his last year in Oklahoma City, helped mentor these young players. That's what he will do. As a veteran point guard, great leadership, mentor the young guys. And we see plenty of teams that have a some nice young talent. But that young talent, those guys don't reach their full potential. And Phoenix was kind of stuck in that loop where you pick highly in that draft, you're kind of the 11th, 12th seed in your conference, you pick highly again, and then you're not really better the next year. And eventually you'd think that would work, but it wasn't for Phoenix. And they just got out of the cycle. Also, this move could help the Suns' future recruiting in free agency with Chris Paul. Because Phoenix is a desirable market for free agents. But they haven't won anything in the last few years. So big-time free agents, do they really want to enter a dumpster fire? I don't think so. Especially if there's reason to question whether winning is a priority for ownership. But ownership just helped answer that question. So I think the Suns made a very nice move here to acquire Chris Paul. You had to, otherwise Devin Booker is probably going to try to force his way out. We've seen many players recently become unhappy real quick and force their way out in a hurry. This protects Phoenix from that situation. And I actually like this move for the Thunder as well. I don't mean to be positive Pete out here, but I like both sides of this deal. The Thunder are absolutely stocking up on draft picks and young players. They get Oubre in this deal. He'll give you 15 to 20 and provide good energy. And you also get a first-round pick. They needed to trade Chris Paul, the Thunder. He's an expiring asset at his age, and he makes $85 million over the next 2 years. And to get a nice young piece and a first-round pick is a job well done for Sam Presti. The Suns are a solid playoff team in the West, now with Chris Paul, to go alongside Booker and Ayton. And this trade, I think, benefits both teams. That is what you call a win-win. Thank you so much for listening. Please help me out and click that subscribe button. But I'm your host, Evan, and I'm out. Peace.